Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I am here to share with you all of the books I read in the month of May. May was a pretty decent month. I read 7 books, which is not as good as April, but it's going to ebb and flow. That's how it goes. As always, I'm going to start with my least favorite, working up to my favorite read of that particular month, May. First, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is an online book service for, you guessed it, readers. Each month, their team vets hundreds of brand new titles and selects 5 to 7 of new titles for you to choose from. So like I said, each month their team goes through all of the new titles and they select 5 to 7. Sometimes they're even early releases. And they select them for you to select which book you want that particular month. In fact, their whole mission is to help readers discover new books that they love, and of course to promote the work of emerging authors, which is just amazing. All you have to do is go to their site, see what selections they have each month, select one or have an add-on, whatever you want to do, and then there you go. There you go. You get this beautiful blue box sent to you in the mail. And what's even great is they offer great prices on hardcover books, but they've recently started doing audiobooks as well, because I know there's a huge audience out there that loves audiobooks. So you can choose whether to have a hardcover or an audiobook that month, which is great because I think a lot of people love audiobooks. I would if I had the time and not 2 young kids that control what I listen to. It's mostly kids' music. But I love the fact that they have added audiobooks as well, because that is just reaching a bigger span of readers, which is always amazing. And I love Book of the Month because they always feature such wide varieties of genres. It's not like 5 romances or 7 thrillers. They feature each different genre. Usually you can find a thriller pick for the month, a romance pick, a historical one, a fantasy one. Sometimes they feature YA ones. They really do a wide array of genres, which I think is just phenomenal. So if you're interested in checking out Book of the Month, which I highly recommend you do so, you can use the code BREEZE at checkout to get your first book for only $9.99. That's right, a hardcover or an audiobook for only $9.99. Like, you can't beat that price. You really, really can't. I'll leave the information down in the description below, but I highly recommend you check out Book of the Month. I love them. I always love guessing which books they're going to select each month. Sometimes I'm right, a lot of times I'm wrong, but it's always a good way to discover new books that I have never heard about. Just like one of my picks this month, which is Honey by Isabel Banta. I've never heard of this book before. Of course, the CDs drew me in. As an elder millennial that grew up with CDs, my first CD ever purchased was In Sync. That's right. Was it No Strings Attached? No. It was their very first CD. I was immediately drawn to this. So this is about an addictive coming-of-age story that follows the rise of a pop star, Amber Young, as she navigates fame and self-discovery in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yes, yes, and yes. I had never known this book was coming out. Thank you, Book of the Month. And the other book I selected was from an author I have read before, and that is The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. She writes a lot of women's fiction, she writes a lot of women's fiction, romance. This one is about a character that is a screenwriter, and she pairs up with like the world's biggest screenwriter to help write a rom-com, and she loves rom-coms, but of course he's a cynic and he doesn't. So it's going to be a recipe for a great time. So these are my 2 picks for the month of June, and I'm so excited for them. I'll leave the information down below for you to check out your picks if you want to pick them out for Book of the Month. As always, thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video. Now on to the books I read in May. So moving on to the books I read in May. Also, I just want to say I got a new camera. Yay, I upgraded. And of course, with getting new equipment and things like that, there's going to be some room for learning. So I'm still very much, it's going to take me a long time to get used to this camera. In case you're wondering what camera I had and which camera I upgraded to, I did have, and I had for literal like 10 something years, was the Canon 5D Mark II. I have now upgraded to a mirrorless. I have now the Canon R6 Mark II, and yeah, it's got a flip out screen. It's got lots of features that I never know about. So it's going to take me a long time to adjust and get used to this. So if it's blurry or something like that, I know this does have autofocus, which my old camera did not. Like, look at this. Oh, it focused. Now we go back. And it focused again, I think. Like, my camera didn't do that. It was a set point. So it's going to take some time. So if things are a little wonky for the next few videos or so, please know I'm learning my new camera, and it's going to take me a long time because if you are familiar with professional cameras and things like that, you got to learn them, you got to get used to them, all that kind of stuff. This is going to be the same way for me. And if you're like, wow, that's an expensive camera, yes, because I use this not only for my YouTube channel, I mainly use it for my photography business. I do a lot of family. I used to do weddings a lot. I don't do those anymore. I do a lot of family engagements. Stuff like that. So that's what I use it for. So it's kind of like a dual purpose camera. Anyway, you don't care about that. I just want to apologize if it's wonky for a bit. It happens. So the 7 books I read in the month of May. I read a couple that I really enjoyed, but I would say overall it was kind of a mediocre month, and that's going to happen. That's really going to happen. So as always, I'm going to start with my least favorite book I read, working up to my favorite. So my least favorite book should probably come as no surprise, and that is The Teacher by Frida McFadden. This is my second book by her, and I just don't know if she's an author for me. I have recently learned, thanks to Olivia from Liv's Libraries, that she writes a lot for brain patients that are trying to learn to read again, that had surgery, and how easy her writing style is. And I think that's phenomenal. And I could see it very much so being that case. So that's awesome. But for me, it's just not there. So this book is, you guessed it, it's about a teacher and it's 2 characters. I don't want to tell you too much because I think it would give the plot away. There was lots of twists in it. The big twist at the end I did enjoy, but overall, I don't love her writing. I will say it's very easy to fly through. This is a thick book. Like it's almost, yeah, it's like on the cusp of 400 pages. That's long for a thriller, but it's so easy to fly through and fast to read. And I do see how her books are easy to read, but they're just not for me. So I don't know if I'll continue on with reading her books. I might read The Housemaid because everyone talks about that one, particularly by her, so I might. But for this one, I gave it like a 2.5 out of 5. It was okay. It wasn't for me, and that's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to bash anything that maybe people would love, and that's okay. Next up, we have another thriller, and that is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. If you're wondering if I bought this book because it has a VHS tape on the cover of it, you're correct. I did buy it because of this. I mean, like anything that has a CD, VHS tape, just take my money because I will give it to you. I beat myself up eternally for getting rid of my CDs and VHS tapes. Like, why? Anyway, this is a very short thriller on the opposite end of the spectrum with the teacher. This follows 3 siblings as their mother just recently passed. They all come back to the home they grew up in. They have not been together for years. They learn that their parents held this big secret and they have to uncover it. And that's the whole gist of it. I would say this is not so much a thriller as it is more of like a family drama of uncovering what secrets their family had. And there was a murder back in the day. It was okay. It wasn't great. With Geneva Rose books, again, they're quick, they're easy to fly through, but they're not super thrilling. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. It was okay. As you can tell, I read these thrillers because I have not been reading a lot of thrillers this year, and these didn't really help out with that. But you live and you learn, I guess. Then we have the last thriller I read this month, and that is Listen for the Lie by Amy Chintera. This is about a podcast. Again, if you have a CD, a VHS tape on the cover, or if it's about a podcast, just take my money. This one I did actually like. I ended up giving it like a 3.5 out of 5. I do think it drug on a little bit, and it could have had been more thrilling, but overall I did enjoy it. I did think the big plot twist at the end wasn't that interesting. I wasn't super invested in it, but I enjoyed it. So this one follows a character named Lucy, who her best friend was murdered 5 years ago, and everyone thought Lucy did it. She lives in this very small town in Texas, and basically her grandma calls her. She lives in LA now, and she's like, come back home to Texas. It's my 80th birthday. I want to see you. By the way, there's a podcast about you going out because they're trying to figure out the murder of Lucy's best friend, Savannah, what actually happened. And Lucy's like, crap. And so she goes back. Everyone still hates her. And she starts working with the podcaster. You get to see the podcast in it to figure out what actually happened the night of Savannah's murder. Because Lucy has no memory of it at all. Like, she had a concussion. She had I don't think she had an aneurysm, but she had, like, her memory, her brain has blocked it out, which is it happens, post-traumatic stuff. And so it was very interesting in that regard. I did enjoy the podcast element. I would say if you're a big fan of podcasts and thrillers, I would recommend this. It was a fast one. It wasn't amazing, but it was my favorite thriller that I read this month, so I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Moving into Christina Lauren's newest book, and that is The Paradise Problem. Look at this beautiful summer cover, and it is just that, a summery book. I really liked it, and I'm so happy because I have been loving the recent releases in the past few years. Like, my favorites of theirs have been their early ones, and that's kind of stuck. But this one I enjoyed. I compare this one a lot to the HBO show White Lotus. If you've seen that, it's kind of reminiscent. It's about super rich people at a resort. There's a murder and stuff that happens in that show. It does not happen in this book, but the whole rich aspect is about that book. So we follow two characters. We follow Anna and we follow Liam. And years ago when they were in college, they got married, just strictly like, it was just like a arrangement so they can get subsidized housing together. And years later, they don't talk to each other anymore, but Liam calls Anna up and he's like, hey, I need a favor. My sister's getting married in like Singapore on this private island, and I need you to pretend to be my wife because of inheritance, and I've been telling my family I've been married. And she's like, and he, of course, offers to pay a lot of money to her, and she needs that for her dad who is sick. And so she goes, and she has to get a whole new wardrobe. She has to completely change herself and act like a total rich person. Like, when I say Liam's rich, like, his family is like billionaire rich, like enough to like buy a private island for a 2-week long wedding event. That's right. That's like crazy freaking rich. It's all about them pretending, and his family is straight up horrible. And I really enjoyed it. It's a great summer tropical one. It's fake dating. It's set on an island, for goodness sake. I liked it. 4 out of 5. Perfect book to read at the beach for sure. Next up, we have Out on a Limb by Hannah Boehm Young. I hope I said that right. This is a Kindle Unlimited book that I've been meaning to read for a while, and I'm glad I did because it's being released in paperback in this month, actually, so I'm pretty excited about that. This one, oh my gosh, it was so cute. It's about a character named Winifred and Beau, and basically they meet at a Halloween party. They connect, and they have a night together, and then weeks later, Winifred learns that she is pregnant, and so she calls Beau, and it's immediately like, this is the best book I've read for communication. There was no miscommunication. They talked it out. They shared their feelings. It was just a beautiful book, all about a friendship becoming with Hannah and Beau, because he wanted to be involved in the baby's life. She wanted him to be. And they also have disabilities, like physical disabilities, which was just phenomenal to read about. Winifred was Wynn, I think that's what they call her, was born with a much smaller hand than a regular size hand. I don't want to pronounce anything differently. And also, Beau recently had bone cancer, and so he has a prosthetic leg. So both of them go through the motions, and they can connect with each other because of their physical disabilities and how other people treat them. And it was just a beautiful love story, very organic, from them getting together one night to being nobodies, then learning that they were going to have a kid together, to being friends and co-parents and something more. And it was just a beautiful book. There's like no miscommunication in this book. There's no third act breakup. Like, it was just a wholesome book. I would give it a 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it. I highly recommend checking out either on Kindle Unlimited or when it comes out on paperback. I will be buying that for sure. But I thought it was just a really awesome book, and I will definitely be checking out her other books because I know she's got like 3 or 4. I need to read them. Then we have my 2 favorite books of the month. These 2 right here. First up, I'm going to talk about Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is the 4th book in her Chestnut Spring series, and I loved it. It is my favorite one. I did not think it would be my favorite. I thought this one, I was like, I'm not sure about it, but I freaking ate this jank up. So if you don't know Chestnut Spring series, they all have interjoining characters. I do recommend reading them in order. It's not a huge deal if you don't, but it's always a good idea. This one follows Winter and Theo. Winter is the main character. Winter is the sister of the main character in the very first book, Summer. That's right, Summer and Winter. And she's just very much like her season name. She's cold. She's just harsh and stuff like that. And then we have Theo, who's been a family friend, and he's a bull rider. And again, much like Out on the Limb, I did not think about that, they have one night together and they just part ways, and then what do you know, Winter ends up pregnant, and it kind of goes on from there. This is full of miscommunication, I will definitely say that, but man, I loved it. This is like when Grumpy meets Sunshine, only the opposite, where Winter was the grumpy and Theo was the definition of sunshine. It was a beautiful love story. I ate it up. My favorite in the series. I have to read one more, and then I'll be all done with the series. I want to do a whole video of ranking them. You can clearly see where my favorite's going to be. Not unless the fifth one totally knocks my socks off. But I love this one. 4.5 out of 5. Phenomenal. And then the last book I have is from Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I finally read another one. Yes! I haven't read a lot of Mariana Zapata books lately because, as you can see, they thick. Like, they are freaking huge. How many pages is this crap? This is like... Yes, this is 530 pages for a romance. She is no stranger to long books. This is my third book by her, and I would say it's my second favorite. I always love and talk about The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. That is my favorite. I've also read All Roads Lead Here, but this one I did really enjoy. So this is about a character named Jasmine, who is a professional ice skater, and she, at the beginning of this book, is not doing so well, and she's usually in pair skating. She doesn't have a pair, but then Ivan Lukov decides that he wants her to be her partner, and they have always had a very big frenemy situation. Her best friend is his sister, all that kind of stuff, and it's basically the whole book about them training, getting to know each other, clearly so in love with each other. But if you don't know, her books are slow burn. Slow burn that I would say nothing really happens with the relationship to, like, I'm not kidding, this much into the book. Like, that's how slow burn it is. Like, she makes you work for that relationship. And most of the time, I freaking eat it up. I love Jasmine. She was very grumpy, and so was Ivan, but they trained so hard, and her family was amazing. He also had, like, all of these pets. He had, like, 4 dogs, a bunny, and a pig, and you would not think that from his character at all, but I ate that crap up. I loved it. I would give it, I don't know if I would give it a 4. I don't know if I would give it a 5 out of 5. I would probably give it like a 4.75, 4.5 maybe, but I loved it. If you want slow burn, grumpy meets grumpy, friends to lovers, partners to lovers, check this one out. You won't be disappointed. But just know it's a thick one, and it did take me quite a while to read, but I'm very glad I read it because I need to read all of her books. I really have to get on that. So there you have all of the books I read in the month of May. 7 books is not too shabby, especially with a couple of really thick ones that I read this month, so I feel pretty accomplished. There are so many books coming out in the month of June that I am just hoping that it's going to be a phenomenal reading month. Fingers crossed. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.